of the self. This can only be a momentary, transient experience that cannot be taken home, as in consumerist ideology. It is about apparition, about suddenness, epiphanies, and there needs to be an object that can accept and reflect the subject without fear, where we can give up the structures of self-control and self-preservation without being threatened. This is possible in art. Thank you very much.
Somebody should give him some water. Huh? That's right. That otherwise would not be. Yeah, usually graduation lecture is not a call for a long discussion, but a few questions we can still allow. I personally will not comment on it. I never comment on friends. Micah?
Question about about natural beauty. I mean, I've been reading a little bit of theories about this idea of the death of nature, in the sense that if you look at even like bird songs have been changed now because they're living in an industrial environment, their songs have changed. So I'm wondering what you think about the idea that that we're actually losing even the ability to have an experience of natural beauty because of its relation to industrialization. Perhaps that it's become such a global. There is no wilderness, there is no nature anymore. We're just lost in already.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is the very possibility of this to happen. And I mean, the whole discussion of domination and exploitation of nature in critical theory is aware of this possibility. On the other hand, there are these ideas in his theory that the industrial process can help nature to become itself, that nature in itself is historical, that nature may have an idea, an image of itself, what it would want to look like, and actually needs human interference. So he doesn't go along with the idea of a pure pre-human nature, but rather a dialectical process which can either fail, and then we would lose nature and basically lose our own nature because we are natural beings. Now, we are facing this. Actually, we do. So this is actually happening. So this is this process going wrong, and this is what the whole critical theory tries to interpret all the time. Why does it go wrong, although we all know it? It's not a question of not knowing about it. It's why we don't do anything, and then it's because this mere subjectivity, the mere agency of us that thinks and speaks and talks, is already part of this process itself. So how do you get out? But of course, I mean, there are both possibilities. And first of all, it's the same in Heidegger's idea of letting go. First of all, you have to think deeper. And before any direct action, that will again remain in the circle. Question is, can we think deeper of, for instance, the relationship between industrial influence upon nature and nature? And then maybe we can come up with another kind of relationship that can both help sustain nature and help sustain our type of societies. Oh, yes.
Another question? You're I'm blind here? Okay. Yes.
I'm curious about the characteristics of a kind of philosophical object, or I guess an art object, and the way Adorno characterizes that experience, I guess. I wondered if you could speak more about that.
Well, his aesthetic theory is, so to say, phenomenological in the sense that he notices at a certain point certain art becomes problematic, difficult, dark, opaque, inaccessible. And people basically are frustrated about this and hate it. And the question is, why has it become like that? And he studied music. He studied with Schoenberg. He knew Weber and all these people. So he tries to understand, why is a Weber piece like it is? Where is the logic of this? And why does it have to be like that? And what is the beauty of it? And so it's first of all, how a Weber piece may comment on the history of music and how it is a condensed version of a sonata, a small piece. What does it say about the musical form of the sonata? What does it say about the Weber piece? And then he thinks of the artistic process as being a process of forms. There is a ratio within the artistical process itself that actually comes about sort of technically. When you produce art, when you write, when you compose music, when you paint, you have a feeling that this is not possible. It just doesn't feel good. And it means it's not right anymore. You simply can't compose like 100 years ago. It doesn't sound right. Because there is a logic in the history of the material. So the question is, how can you answer to the material? And this is how he understands the artistic process. You answer as an artist, you answer to the logic of the material. The material itself has a history. And you notice this, you have a bad feeling in the stomach. I know about, I work as an editor with writers. And you write, you put down a sentence and you feel bad. And it just sounds terrible. And you may not be able to say why. And then you work around it for hours, days, months, years, until it sounds right. And this is a technical thing. It's the language itself that tells you this is wrong, this is right. So part of the artistic process is to know your stuff, to know your forms, to know the history, the structures you work with, to know your material. As a writer, you should know writings. Do you know the history of literature? As a painter, you should know art history. As a musician, you should know music. And you will hear what is wrong and what is right. And in his understanding, autonomous advanced art in his lifetime had the aspect of becoming difficult, inaccessible more and more as we call it, for instance, in regard to poetry, hermetic. The late Paul Celan poems are not understandable at all at first look. You don't understand a single word, because he changes even the words, comes up with neologisms or anything. So you have to sort of step into those poems and stay with them for a long time. Understand what they allude to, which they do, which you can find out, and study them. And suddenly they unfold. Suddenly they start to make sense. And this takes time and time and time. And of course, Paul Celan speaks of the Holocaust a lot of times. And there's a clear reason why a poetry of a Jew who writes in German, a language of a people that basically doesn't exist anymore, cannot speak or cannot write in an accessible language anymore, because anything he refers to is lost and gone. How can he speak truly of something that isn't there anymore? So he has to inscribe sort of the non-entity of this into the words. How do you do this? And this is one of the reactions, is his kind of poetry becoming hermetic. And then somebody like Adorno would say, well, this is not simply a subjective decision of a person in time who liked to do this, but there is a historical logic why it has to be like this. And there can be other poems about Auschwitz which are terrible because they are kitsch and they are slap in the face of the whole issue. So the question is, how do you address it? This is the most radical example, but that was also always one of the examples that was used, but it just stands in for any of this, any of these ideas. But again, his theory reacts to an observation. And the observation is, in his lifetime, autonomous art